She only lives on me when she wants something. She'll dump me for Connie in a heartbeat.
Right.
But then again, so would you.
Yes.
The Georgia Virtue presents the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. This is episode 234. This week, we have special loans for special people. Texas Christians take aim at HIV drugs, banning books, bypassing book bans, and rap confessions. I'm Dave Roberts. With me is my partner in this endeavor, writer, journalist, dog mom, and owner of the GeorgiaVirtue.com, Jessica Szilagyi.
Hi.
Howdy, howdy. How was your week?
Better than the guy in the pro se murder trial that Eric and I watched. How was your week?
Rainy. A lot of rain.
Yeah,
we got a couple days
raining.
of sunshine, but it's been very, very wet this year. You kind of wish you could take some of this rain and send it over to Lake Mead, where it's so low that bodies are starting to be discovered.
Or Jackson, Mississippi. Did you hear what's going on there?
No.
They are something happened with their wastewater treatment plant or something, and they have absolutely no water.
Well, they don't need rain.
They need rain barrels with rain.
Well, maybe rain barrels, but they don't need rain, further complicating getting the sewage back up. Yes, I did see that. Last week they were waiting in line. Long lines for bottled water.
Yeah, crazy.
I don't know. Oh yeah, it is. How do you bathe?
It's a great question.
Because I understand you can get away a couple days with baby wipes, stuff like that, but most people still have to go to work. You can't just close all the grocery stores because the water's cut off.
No. But I'm sure they close the schools, which just complicates things.
It does. It does. Hell, they shut water fountains down in schools anyway.
True.
Of course, you need something to cook with. Now, I got as we record, I had a meeting this morning. I got up and was getting dressed. And Connie got up and she sees my shoes. She goes, "Why the hell are you wearing Converse?" I had my Chuck Taylors on. So what are you wearing with Converse? I'm like, my button-down Dr. Cool shirt. It's like, pfft. I think she just told me I'm too old to wear Chuck Taylors.
I can't speak to that, but I would trust Connie's advice.
Well, normally when I go to work, I wear cargo pants and work boots and a Dr. Cool polo.
Right.
And if I have to actually work, I'll throw a Dr. Cool t-shirt on if I have to get in a crawl space or something. But yeah, if I go to the Chamber of Commerce like I did this morning, I wear a button down and wear nicer jeans. And I just didn't put on dress shoes today. I threw on my black Chuck Taylors, and she was just looking at me like, "You idiot." Which is true.
Right.
Speaking of idiots.
Well,
Bank of
lots
America.
Of them this week.
Do what?
There's lots of them this week.
Yes, there are. Bank of America launching new zero down payment, zero closing cost mortgage products to help members of predominantly minority communities buy their first homes, calling it the Community Affordable Loan Solution.
We were talking about this before the show, and one of the things we were talking about was the fact that they're not, quote, government backed, but Bank of America is government backed and government subsidized and everything else. So I think it's totally gross, but I'll let you tell about it before we really dive in.
So this is going to be in 4 cities. The plan is to have it in 4 cities. New York, Dallas, Miami, and Chicago, I think, is the 4th. So what this program does is first-time home buyers in minority communities, this is targeted, and this is according to Bank of America, this is not me surmising, targeted at Black and Hispanic communities to increase, what they're saying, increase home ownership. It'll be zero down, zero closing costs, so nothing out of pocket. They're saying that credit score will not be heavily weighted as much as stability and rental income. Or not rental. I'm not rental income. I'm always on the other side. Rental history.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to weight that more than your credit score, which is fine, whatever you want to use to make your loans, as long as it's applied equally across the board, which of course it is not. What this does not say is what kind of interest rates they'll be looking at, because this is obviously subprime if you're skipping the credit report and taking zero down. Oh, and zero PMI, private mortgage insurance. That normally people who put less than 20% down have to pay PMI, which is an insurance that does not cover the borrower. It covers the lender should they have to take the home back and they sell it for less than the value. That's the insurance covers them on that, or less than what's on the bill. Jess, is this not reminiscent of the early 2000s with the subprime mortgages?
Well, yeah. I mean, here's my thing. This is going to come back cyclical, because we were talking about, what we don't know what the interest rates are. We don't know what the terms of the mortgages are going to be or how restrictive they are. But let's just say that, we're talking about buying at the top of the market when prices are still extremely high. They might have come down slightly, but they're still relatively high. And, you're literally targeting groups of people, but we don't know what the circumstances are. So when this comes full circle and the market tanks and people lose their homes, the first thing that's going to come out of the mouths of the people who took these loans is, this was predatory and you targeted Black people and Hispanic people. Yeah, and there's no defense.
Right. And look, it's not saying that white people cannot get these loans, but they're very specifically targeted at the areas that are predominantly Black or Hispanic. So within the city of Dallas, in Texas, obviously, it's going to target specific zip codes, or even within that, certain neighborhoods that have a low percentage of home ownership, and target it there. It is a horrible idea to borrow zero down in an inflationary market.
It's a bad idea to borrow zero down ever. Because it's not for the borrower, it's for the lenders, because you want people to have skin in the game. You want them to have, otherwise they just walk away. We've seen this show. This is a rerun.
Yeah, the only products that really are zero down besides what they're proposing here are VA loans, and those are government backed. Even FHA wants something down.
USDA are 100%.
Are they?
Yeah.
So again, government-backed loans. So the lender really has very little risk.
You mean the people are the ones that are on the hook? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Until Biden decides that he wants to pay off mortgages instead of student loans. Don't give him any ideas.
It's just, it's just this, all of this that continues to occur is so much of a slap in the face to anyone who's ever worked hard and worked to meet the thresholds of meeting the standards that are put in place. And it's kind of, to me, it's like affirmative action. Like when you're talking about jobs or schools and how I've talked about on the show in the past, I don't understand why people think this is awesome. Like, if somebody said, we're going to give you a mortgage because you're a woman, I would be like, why? Do you think I can't get it on other merits? Why do people want to be treated differently because of their whichever qualifier we're talking about at the moment? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, and back on your skin on the game comment, skin on the game, one of the first shows that I hosted, we talked about the Brad Pitt homes in New Orleans that were falling apart. And the people that got these free houses were pissed off at Brad Pitt because, 15 years later, things were falling apart. Well, it's because they didn't have skin in the game and they didn't maintenance their houses. Same thing goes when you have nothing invested besides what you would have paid in rent anyway. When things get bad, you walk.
Yeah, for sure.
And these folks will never have equity unless the market just does something totally contrary to what we all think it's going to do and just continues to climb. What's an average house now in any of these areas? Let's pick 200,000.
Yeah.
So they're going to finance $200,000, all of it, 100% at whatever interest rate. It takes a long time to build equity. And then
all they have to do is do a home housing counseling partners course.
Right. Doesn't say you have to pass it. And even if you do pass it, that means intellectually you should pay your bill. Doesn't mean that you will. If it comes down to, I need to pay my car payment, or, whatever. The idea is a hierarchy of needs is you'll always pay your mortgage first, which is why mortgage lenders always had looser standards than unsecured. Same thing with cars. Cars are a lot looser than getting a high limit on an unsecured credit card, something like that. But this is one, it's unsustainable. It's a horrible idea for Bank of America. It's probably illegal, and I think the Fed will stop them. It's disparate treatment.
And they said that like this is addressing a real problem because LendingTree released data that showed that the denial rate for Black borrowers is twice that of the overall population, and that homeownership rates for Black Americans is almost 30 percentage points lower than white Americans. But that's not just, there's so much more that goes into home ownership and it's not just like you can't just give somebody a home. Also, you don't really own a home just if you put zero down and you have no investment in it, and you don't really own it because you've got to make however many long payments until you actually own it outright. And if you're not paying the property taxes, or you're not prepared to pay the property taxes, then you're just gonna get a lien.
Well, what the bank does is the bank will pay your property taxes, then throw it on top of your loan.
Well, yeah, if you opt
because they don't want to lose their collateral.
Yeah, but that will just make your payment higher.
But when you look at stats are useless without context. All right, so there are more white homeowners than Black. Well, instead of going to the lender side, the supplier side on this and ask, well, why aren't you making more loans to Black people? Well, it's not, the lenders have no idea what race you are when you submit the application. No idea. They're going simply off of income and collateral and credit history.
And your debt.
Well,
most of us.
Yeah, DTI, debt to income. If those things are in order, it doesn't matter what race you are. I know plenty of people of all different backgrounds that own their homes, and people of all different backgrounds that don't want to own a home and rent. And I know a lot of young people that would love to own, but they're not in that position yet. So, and I get that there's a ongoing problem with renters, with rents going up so high, and you could buy a house for less. We've all said that, like, good Lord, $2,000 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. You can buy a decent 2.5 for less than that. And we've all said that, but
totally. But it also, you're also talking about like where people live. If you live in the city and there's condos and things like that, there's a lot of people that have purchased those for investment properties, because people who are living in condos a lot of times are young and single, or it's not their forever home, or they're going to be transient, or they're not home a lot, or they don't want there's so many factors that go into urban living versus suburban living.
Especially in our Georgia model, it's a little different up north. Up north, you may rent your entire life, or if you buy a condo, that's where that's your house, because there's nothing to build up. What I think this is a way for Bank of America to create a permanent rental income, and applaud themselves for what they're doing for these minority communities. It's basically they're turning all of them into permanent renters. People who take these loans, because you got to think 30 years, you don't even make headway on a mortgage loan for 10. Again, property appreciation aside, And then you take folks that may not have the best credit, may not have the best resources because they don't have anything to put down to get things fixed. And you put them in a house that needs upkeep. And the nice thing about renting is when something goes wrong, your toilet breaks, you call the landlord. Your water heater breaks, landlord. Air conditioner, landlord. Well, when you own the place, guess what? When Dr. Cool shows up on your door and says, hey, listen, this thing's shot, it's got to go. Well, how much is it? Pick a number out of, there's so many different, $6,000. They go, oh my God, how do people have $6,000? Well, most homeowners have savings or they have a credit card they could put it on. I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah, and it's something all the time. Let me just tell you.
Oh, it is. It's a new roof. It's a cracked window. It's a carpenter bees that chew on your deck. It's dry rot on your deck after having a super, super wet summer. It's all that goes into it. I've got to have my stairs rebuilt on the front of my house, and it's always something to spend money on. And I don't know if these are going to be new houses or even new houses are built like crap, and they only get a 1-year warranty on it. 1 year. Builders know for 1 year they'll listen to you whine for 1 year, and then you're on your own. And these folks have got to come out of pocket. And these are people that don't have any money to put down on a house. And now you've got to buy a lawnmower. Now you've got to go out and you've got to furnish this house you just bought. You've got all these expenses. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible deal. And going 0% in an inflationary market is insane. But like you said before, you sign the contract, you're on the hook, buddy.
Yeah,
until we get another bailout, say predatory lending, and we got to bail them out. After, of course, we bailed out Bank of America and the other banks a few years ago.
Well, it's never enough. It's never, we're never helping people enough. They're never. It will never be sufficient. We just continue to help individual groups of people and pretend like it's not just the most backwards nonsense there ever was.
And look, I have no problem with helping individuals. Groups of people gets into be a problem because then you're assuming a lot. But yeah, people need help. Absolutely. I want to give them a helping hand. It's not the role of government, but that's why we have charities. That's why, people who believe in small government tend to be more philanthropic than those who believe in big government. Mm-hmm. If you really need help, and the market corrects so much when people can't afford to pay the rent, landlords have to lower the rent. It's a product like anything else. When cars get to be too expensive and no one can afford them, the prices will come down. That's just the way it is. You have to let the free market do this, and Bank of America's not. This is almost like they're propping up the real estate boom by putting in hundreds of thousands of additional buyers to snatch up these houses in the markets. Again, pushing prices up, creating more consumers for it by offering 0%. Almost like that's what the Fed did when they took the interest rates down to 0. So Texas Christians sue federal insurance mandate for HIV prevention drugs, PrEP. P, little r, big E, big P.
Yeah, not really sure. I mean, so I don't believe in any company being, or any entity being forced to require anything. I mean, if it's but this is like not even. This is not even. Not yes. Oh my God, I can't. You just go ahead.
Yeah, the federal government last year began requiring most insurance companies to fully cover HIV prevention medication known as PrEP, sold under the brand names Descovy or Truvada, whatever.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, not everyone who is taking HIV preventative or is gay.
Yeah, this is what it goes down to. I didn't even get to that point. Is they're saying because they don't believe this particular group doesn't believe that doesn't believe homosexuality is moral, should be around the church, whatever.
So don't hire any homosexuals. I mean,
Arthur Ashe was not gay.
I'm just
Magic
saying,
Johnson,
like, if you don't like, because it doesn't just apply to homosexuals, but if your problem is with homosexuality, then dive in head first to the mess of whether or not you are offering insurance to people who are homosexuals. Seems like a pretty simple way to weed it out here, because otherwise you just look like an idiot.
They do look like idiots. First of all, the lawsuit should be mandating insurance companies cover this completely. Mandating that it's free HIV prevention drugs. Let's say if they have a problem with the free injections for COVID, and free this and free that. Nothing. I've got a T-shirt that I like to wear around, especially on election day. It says nothing the government gives you is free. Mm-hmm. Free this, free that, to cover it at no cost. Well, they have to take that money from somewhere else. But yeah, if I were a single guy, I'd probably be on this stuff. You never know when one might get you.
Well, and they're also against contraception, and so I mean, don't offer insurance.
Well, that's not an option anymore.
Well, it is. You just have to be creative, but
that's true.
And also, there's plenty of plans that are like group plans where the company doesn't really pay for much. Like, it's really mostly on the individual, you know?
Yeah, it's available to you. The
right.
company doesn't contribute much, but
right.
It is available to you. Yeah. And here's the thing about it's just stupid. They don't believe in premarital sex. They don't believe in contraception, whatever.
That's their ideology. That's not the issue.
I know, but you could not believe in premarital sex. I assure you it happens.
I agree. And it's also less expensive to pay for premarital or to pay for contraception than it is to pay for another person on that plan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also cheaper to pay for this preventative than it is to, I don't know, whatever AZT is called nowadays, but HIV treatment for the rest of their lives. Because that stuff is, from what I understand, prohibitively expensive. It
is. And again, like, it speaks to the same problem that most people had with, I mean, it's a recurring problem that you shouldn't be forced to pay for something or to cover certain things. However, you know, the irony is that a church wants the 501c3 status, or, you know, the tax exempt status from the federal government.
It's an interesting point. Is I for one believe that churches should be treated like every other entity.
So I've had lots of discussions with people about this, and I had a pretty heated one, I remember, a couple of years ago. And the argument by some was that when you start taxing people or start taxing entities, then it weeds into like a limit on the First Amendment protections because they could be taxed at a different level. But I mean, if that's the argument, then our First Amendment, because we identify as individuals and we're not like, I mean, you could make that argument with anybody. And that's why the principled position is that everyone should be tax exempt and that nobody should be paying these types of things. However, I mean, churches, not all churches, but there are plenty of churches that historically like to enjoy the privileges afforded by the tax exempt status, but then also, you know, like PPP.
Yeah. How about Joe Osteen?
He's not a church.
Well, he runs a church.
He shouldn't.
No, he shouldn't. Creflo Dollar.
Yeah.
I mean, there are churches that are running for profit.
Yeah, and they have been since. I mean, there's been people who have been abusing it since the beginning of time. You know, like we.
But yes, cults. Ultimately, you're right. The number one way to cure all of it is get rid of the income tax.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't pick and choose what you want the government to regulate, not regulate, intervene on.
Sure. And then we get into the government doesn't have the authority to decide what is actually a church. So when you create the church, the Flying Spaghetti Monster, real church, they have no choice but to give you all the privileges that they give to the Catholic Church. Or the Church of Dudism.
It just opens up a door that we can't seem to close. But I mean, again, it all comes back to, no, I don't want anyone to be forced to do anything against their beliefs. That is the foundation. But there are ways around this. I don't understand why you have to sue. And then you also just want to pick like two, or like, how about you just, if like the argument should be that you shouldn't be forced to do anything, not just these two things. Why do you have to draw attention to this in this way? And I can tell you why. It's because of who the lawyer is. And that's the former Solicitor General who helped write the Texas abortion law, to the extent that it allows individuals to sue people they believe have helped other people get an abortion, which, I mean, I don't know. I don't really care where you fall on pro-life or pro-choice, but that is, I mean, that's like the bridge that's too far, you know, like why should Dave Roberts sue somebody he thinks helped someone else? Like, what does it have to do with you? And why would you want to tie up the courts with that kind of stuff? And I feel like this is the same thing. Like you're drawing attention to it in the name of controversy when the issue is not. I mean, what if they said that you had to pay for a weekly COVID test? We went through this.
Yeah.
Do you remember
and here's the thing with the lawsuit. If you can't show damages unless, look, I knock some chick up and she goes and runs and gets an abortion, and I may have a lawsuit because it's saying that I was harmed by having my child by
sure,
because that was my child. So that's a, whether or not that would shake out in court, I don't know, but that's
no, but it at least has you at least have standing,
argument.
Right.
So to say I know Susie down the street had to leave for 3 weeks and came back, and all of a sudden she said she had a miscarriage. I bet she had an abortion. I'm going to sue her. That just brings out a whole new level of Karens. And I'm sorry to any Karen out there. It's not your fault that became the insult.
Well, it might be.
Yeah. It just might be.
I mean, it had to start somewhere, but it might not all of you, but I mean, it had to come from somewhere. But anyway, go on.
But yeah, so mind your own business. Just get the insurance plan. Well, who the hell is going through the insurance plan line by line, seeing what you cover? Who's doing that? I mean, you could honestly say that you're taking this PrEP because you're a hemophiliac and you may have to get a blood transfusion and you want to be protected. It's very, very, very low risk to get AIDS through a blood transfusion. But I digress. Or your side hustle is you work at the church part-time and you also work as a volunteer fireman and you have your hands in people's blood and things like that. So you want to go ahead and get on this just in case you come in contact with somebody who's infected, and have to give mouth to mouth or have to reach inside to stop an artery from bleeding and you get blood on yourself or somebody stabs you with a needle. So there's no downside to being on. There's 1,000 other reasons besides being a homosexual that you would be on this drug. I also just think it's not really your employer's business if you're a homosexual. I mean, yeah. Unless you're working at Gays R Us or something. I mean, obviously, if you go try out for Queer Eye for the Straight Guy and you're a straight dude trying to be one of the style consultants, you're not going to make it. But other than that, it's really none of the church's business.
I don't disagree.
How many effeminate men I've known that are married with like 3 kids and like, boy, I wouldn't have picked you out, but yeah, they got 3 kids, happy marriage, and go to church every Sunday. I don't know. It sure does seem like for someone who said he without sin cast the first stone, sure are damn judgmental.
Yeah, I mean, again, their church their choice. But that's, I don't know. I if I were a member of that church, I would ask that we not die on that hill.
I'll take my tithing elsewhere. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
This is a good time to remind you that these are our opinions and not those of anyone not on the show or any respective company for which we may work, own, or otherwise associate ourselves with on a regular or irregular basis. Also, you can find other episodes and relevant stories over at thegeorgiavirtue.com. Back to the book ban babble. So Virginia is told they can't force bookstores to ask for ID from kids buying certain books.
Interesting that they tried to.
Yeah, specifically on gender and sexuality.
Well, and wasn't it? It's just 2 books, which really, I think, I mean, it's like these people don't think things through when they start a movement.
Look, I am with age appropriate books. I don't want books that are describe any sexual thing being in elementary school. They need to be focusing on the mechanics of reading rather than the mechanics of how boys and girls fit together, or boys and girls and girls. Mm-hmm. But they were trying to enforce this on private businesses, bookstores. And there's got to, how many are in Virginia? 2? How many bookstores are left? I mean,
yeah,
Bezos pretty much killed them.
Yeah. So the books are Genderqueer and A Court of Mist and Fury. And Genderqueer, it has, I guess, sexual scenes and illustrations about oral sex. And then A Court of Mist and Fury is, quote, sexually offensive in nature for its illustrations of sexual acts and descriptions of, quote, abusive and intrusive sexual contact. So that's, and these were apparently available at private bookstores. I don't know how many children who are under the age of 18 were driving around to bookstores in Virginia trying to obtain copies of these books without parental consent to cause such an uproar. But, there's quite a bit of illustrations of oral sex and graphic sexual scenes and the other intrusive sexual contact on television.
Yeah, and look, we like to, when we say children, the first thing that pops into my head is
7-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. 7. When they say children, they mean anybody under 18. And look, kids that are watching prime time. I mean, it's not even. It used to be you had to wait for Skinamax to come on after 11:30 before you saw. I mean, hell, primetime network TV is getting to the point where they're really getting descriptive on stuff. I can't remember what show I was watching, and it was an old episode of Stargate SG-1, and this was a primetime show. I mean, it was on Sci-Fi, but a primetime show. And one of the characters mistakenly gets tickets, doesn't know what he's going to see, and he walks into the vagina monologues. And he's the only man there. He's kind of sinking down in his seat as they go into the opening of that show. That was prime time, and they were doing. And this was 25 years ago. Yes, kids are already exposed to it. Even you said before the show, you don't, unless you have no idea what your kids are discussing or hearing from other kids at school.
Yeah.
I haven't read these books, and if they're not available in the school, that's fine. But this is a private company.
Well, that, and I don't agree. Like, I don't want. We do similar things with tobacco products and things like that, but those are products and alcohol. But we've, I mean, not us, but like society has decided that those things are illegal for children under a certain age. When we're talking about things like this for things that are otherwise legal, I mean, it's actually not illegal. I guess my problem is that like where a child is on the parent.
Absolutely.
And, like,
look,
if your kid is not, if you don't know where your kid is, they end up at a bookstore buying an obscene book, that's your fault.
Well, and the thing with it is these books are literary. Obviously, if you go into the old gas stations, the not Quick Trip, not Parker's, not Racetrack, but you go to some of these gas stations and you see the dirty book counter, and all the magazines are in plastic. That's because they have no literary value. The purpose of those books is to stimulate and arouse. Those can be off limits to somebody under 18.
Well, we've already decided as much, but like this is a haphazard thing that they're just.
Well, they're throwing the word porn around with these books and stuff. I talked to you about, which is not on the show sheet. I talked to you about there's a book out there called "This Book Is Gay" that parents are all upset about, and I think it was Texas. Being in the school, and it's one thing to get it out of the school, but it's another thing to ban it from a store. But this it's literary. It's not pornographic. You ruin terms when you misuse them. When you call everybody a racist, when you call everybody a Nazi, you destroy those terms. When you say you've been assaulted when someone just called you a name, you cheapen those terms. You cheapen the term pornography when you misapply it to things that are obviously not pornographic. And it may offend your sensibilities, but it's not pornography. If it was, you'd have to check the ID of any kid that goes up and buys a romance novel, because I guarantee that they could walk up and buy 50 Shades of Grey right now. But that's okay because it's a straight couple.
Totally. And there's a series by V.C. Andrews that is available, and it's for young teens. And I can assure you that they are extremely graphic. I mean, you're totally right about that. I guess part of the issue in these is there's illustrations, but I mean, again, you're in these other books, you're talking about they really are they're literary pieces. I mean, I looked up A Court of Mist and Fury on Amazon, and it's kind of odd. I don't know. She talks about, it says this girl's name is Fire, like Feyre. I know. She survived Amarantha's clutches to return to the Spring Court, but at a steep cost. Though she now has the powers of the High Fae, her heart remains human, and you can't forget the terrible deeds she performed to save Tamlin's people. Like, it's part of a series, so we don't know who any of these people are, but it says she navigates a dark web of politics, passions, and dazzling powers. A greater evil looms, and she might be the key to stopping it. So, I mean, and then it talks about her harrowing gifts, how she heals her fractured soul and decides how she wishes to shape the future and the future of the world torn apart. Again, you might not want your kid reading it. It says the grade level is for 10 to 12. So it's interesting that's interesting that it's in the, that in my mind, that's like 16, 17, 18. I was 15 and 16 in 10th grade, but, it's 656 pages. Like, that's a long book. You're not going to have a 10-year-old pick that book up.
No, maybe flip to the pictures. No, it's obviously targeted at young adults. Now, these aren't tweens. These aren't elementary school kids. I'm not defending it. I have no idea. I haven't read the book, and at 600 and a half pages, I'm not going to read the book because I have no interest in that crap. Not the gay or anything else. It's just the plot doesn't sound interesting to me. But then again, I'm not a 10th grade girl that I know of. But this was brought by former congressional candidate Tommy Altman and state delegate Tim Anderson, which I got a lifelong friend named Tim Anderson. As his legal counsel, filed 2 petitions. Obscenity, according to law, includes shameful or morbid interest in nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, excretory functions, or products thereof, sadomasochistic abuse as its dominant theme or purpose.
50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah. But here's the caveat to it. Taken as a whole, a book must also lack serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value to be considered obscene.
And a lot of people don't like Barnes and Noble because, you know, they have partnerships with Starbucks and they lean left and blah, blah, blah. But they filed a brief supporting them, because they asked the court to dismiss these petitions filed to keep them from purchase or selling these books to whatever minors, however they want to phrase it. But they said that they fell woefully short of the constitutional standards governing obscenity. I mean, that's absolutely correct. You can't tell me that a book with 656 pages of text and a few pages of illustrations. And it says there's another part that says that the Supreme Court has not accepted cases involving literary obscenity since 1973, nor has it found any book to be obscene, which I think is telling too. In a lot of ways, you could argue that our society has become way more sexualized and way more comfortable with sexuality, and for whether that's with people who are homosexual or one of the other letters on the spectrum now, or between a male and a female. I mean, that's a reality. Look at TV. Look at how TV has evolved in the last 10 to 12 years.
Look at I Love Lucy. They had separate beds because the censors would not let a married couple even get in the same bed.
Right.
It was Barbara Eden in her costume for I Dream of Jeannie could not show her belly button. So if you look at any of the pictures of her as Jeannie, she always had her midriff is always above her belly button. I think the same thing went for Dawn Wells in Gilligan's Island, as I recall, that there was because Dawn Wells always had a midriff on, but the pants were always above the belly button. I don't know what is sexual about a belly button. Unless just into lint. I don't know.
Ew. Something that when I'm dealing with work, that when I get a tip or somebody is, pushing me hard to keep on something to run someone out of office or to try to get someone to resign or whatever the case may be, a lot of times I ask them, what do you want to accomplish? What is your end goal? And what is the alternative? And I think that's a great question here, because the alternative to what we have right now is that the government can and does control books and things like that. And when you ask them to, there's a graphic on the internet that says, if you give them an inch, you'll make them a ruler. Because when you ask them to do something, the government's response is always going to be more than you asked for, because they don't even have to fight you. So I'd much rather have a kid or two have to deal with, parents have to deal with the consequences of talking to their child about this than having the government say, well, we think these books are appropriate. That's a parent's decision.
Private entity. And look, none of these books that anything I've seen in these books rise to the standard of being pornographic. Now, do I call romance novels chick porn? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely they are. Men and women are turned on by different things, and women are honestly more intellectual and would rather read the plot. A guy wants to watch, 3 minutes of porn. Totally different ways of the same thing. So if slippery slope is a real thing. If you open the door to this, are we going to start putting books in plastic bags like they do the nudie books at the gas station? That's going to have to be in a plastic bag.
It's going to drive up the cost.
Yeah, drive up the cost.
Why do they want it to be more expensive for children to learn how to read? I don't understand why these tyrants are doing that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of kids, especially me. I wanted to be outside. I mean, I read what I wanted to. I hated doing assigned reading and stuff like that. But my parents would have cared what I was reading. I was sitting down reading a book instead of doing all
Exactly.
the stuff I was doing. Like, oh, what are you reading about? Lesbians? Whatever. At least you're reading. It's insane. Now, speaking of insane, we have a teacher told students how to access banned books. A state official wants her license revoked.
Not Virginia.
Not Virginia. No, so there was
This is Texas. Oklahoma. Sorry, Oklahoma. Same
thing. Right along the Red River there. This is Mother Jones.
Grade teacher. Yeah.
Yeah, 10th grade teacher. Again, 16-year-olds. Now, look. This woman went way overboard. She decorated her room with a bunch of red stuff. She's got the rainbow flag hanging in the room, and she's got like covering books, and then she put up a...
Hold on. She covered she put these shelves together and covered them in red paper, and then put, you know how the teachers put those letters that they like staple to the board? She put books the state doesn't want you to read. And then they have QR codes. I mean, it's terrible, and I don't agree with it, but like, talk about someone who says F the system.
I don't disagree with a lot of what she's doing. It would be better for a freshman class, a freshman college class, not freshman high school. But allowing the kids to think critically about governments banning books and things like that. But what she would have bridged too far when she gave them the resource to bypass what she's not supposed to be promoting in the classroom, and she quit. I mean, she resigned.
Which she probably had. I mean, she's 34. I would imagine that she knew what the consequences could be if she. I mean, that's pretty dang bold.
It is. And this may have been going out in a blaze of glory that she was done with Texas, that she's going to move somewhere. Oklahoma, sorry. Done with Oklahoma. She's going to go to a different show on Broadway. But she's going to go out to California, and she's going to go where minds are expanded or whatever. This could have been her going out in a blaze of glory. I don't know why you do it on the first day of school or whatever, but yeah, I don't know if her license should be revoked. She deserved to lose her job because she was acting outside of her authority. So yeah, quitting in lieu of being fired was probably the right thing for her. Well, but to yank her license,
and it's
for this,
it's coming from.
Go ahead.
Well, no, it's coming from the Secretary of Education. Like, this isn't just like which is the equivalent of Richard Woods, the state school superintendent here. And he put this letter out on Twitter, which tells you everything that you need to know about why this is happening. And I think that bothers me. Like, if this had just happened, I mean, we see teachers do much like super inappropriate things, and they are suspended for a period of time. But we don't hear about it because we hear about like their initial arrest or their initial termination, and then it's just swept under the rug. But this went on Twitter. And he specifically said that there's no place for a teacher with a liberal political agenda. She provided access to banned and pornographic material. Now, I'm with you on the more pornographic material, that if she provided that, that's inappropriate. However, you have to go back to the same standard we just talked about in the last story, which is whether or not it lacked literary value. And second, I really don't think that, I mean, I understand. So they have a new state law in Oklahoma that, similar to like our critical race theory stuff and divisive concepts, they pulled certain books from school libraries, and those are what she put in there. So I understand that I understand why she's going against the standards, but to say she provided pornographic material to students, I think is completely...
She would be in jail.
Right.
For a teacher to provide porn to her students, she would be in jail. No, for an
adult to perform... I mean...
Yes, for an adult, you know?
And so I think that... And he said, this type of behavior will not be tolerated in Oklahoma, and I speak for parents across the state who are demanding swift and immediate action. I mean, sit down, dude. Like you look like a total douche here. I mean, again, I understand that she violated the policies that you've put in place thanks to this state law. That's reasonable. But to assert that she violated the law in the name of the liberal political agenda is gross.
Are they overflowing with teachers in Oklahoma?
I don't know. Maybe you could retweet and ask him.
So here's the thing. If she's a qualified teacher, she made a mistake. She made an error. And she's paid for it. She lost her job. Does it mean she should never work in Oklahoma as a teacher again? No. It means that she needs to learn from it and move forward. It doesn't mean you yank her ability to make a living. Especially when you're hurting for teachers. It's not like they have a waiting list for people wanting to go teach 10th grade. Mm-hmm. I assure you they don't. And for him to even get into liberal ideology is one, dumb. Political. The word's political. No teacher should be getting, other than a history teacher teaching about the politics or a political science teacher, English teacher doesn't need to be getting into politics at all. And that's something that he can say is she needs to stay clear of politics. Now, if she wants to tell her class, look, there's some books that the government has said we can't provide to you in the school. There are resources, go out, look them up. And if you want to read them on your own, go ahead and leave it at that and move on with teaching kids, how to, read, reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's it. Go back to teaching kids.
Yeah. I don't think that you have to agree with what she did to think that the response is a little bit
draconian.
Yeah. I mean, and also what's hilarious is that he put out a letter at 10:52 on August 31st, and then he updated the letter and wrote updated letter because, he wouldn't dare risk deleting a tweet that got him all kinds of traction and controversy. And he updated the letter an hour later with one line that said she stepped down instead of facing removal. But I mean, to say that you don't want this for her to go from district to district doing the same thing. I mean, she's been put on blast. I'm pretty sure that in Oklahoma, people are aware of her and that she wouldn't just pop in somewhere else. I mean,
yeah.
It speaks to the problem with why we have problems with licenses and why it's so ridiculous because, what the government giveth, the government taketh away. And if a school wants to hire her, they should hire her. If they don't, they don't. But.
And continuing our war on the arts, Georgia DA Fannie Willis says rap lyrics will continue to be used in criminal cases. Jessica, why does Fannie hate rap?
I don't know. So she said this, and obviously she's used Young Thug's lyrics against him in a recent indictment. And there was another 220 count indictment that charged 26 people. It came down last week or the week before. I'm not sure. But her quote was the most ridiculous, asinine quote I've ever heard. She said, maybe not ever heard, but at least this week. She said, I think if you decide to admit your crimes over a beat, I'm going to use it. I'm going to continue to do that. People can continue to be angry about it. I have some legal advice. Don't confess to crimes on rap lyrics if you do not want them used. Or at least get out of my county. She should have stopped before she said, or at least get out of my county. That is stupid. So you can confess, but she just wants you to leave. I mean, they've already committed the crime. She's stupid.
Yes, she is. I mean, a lot of the rap culture has been legally ill-advised to do, be a felon and hold a pistol in a rap video.
Yeah, that's gotten people in trouble. That's an action that you can see. I don't know how you can prove that somebody's lyrics are a confession. That's kind of funny.
Because, again, this is literary. If you write a book about killing somebody, it's not a confession. I mean, hell, Stephen King would be doing 100 life sentences right now for all the people he's killed in his books.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a prejudice towards the music industry. It was with rock and roll. It's with rap. That it's sort of counterculture. So if you get up and you sing and you rap about pimping hoes, it doesn't mean you were actually a pimp. Doesn't mean you actually had hoes. It's artistic expression, and that's covered under the First Amendment. Now, look, if you get up on a rap song and say, "I killed John Smith on August 31st in the Parker's parking lot," okay, well, let's go look at that.
Yeah, but her whole thing about like, get out of my county. Well, it's not your county, first of all.
Yeah, well, it's also prejudicial to the jury, I think, that if you have somebody on that rapped about violence and they're accused of a violent crime, and that particular song has nothing to do with their crime, it's prejudicial. Because what you're doing is you're trying to conflate art with reality. Now, could a violent person make a rap album? Absolutely. There are several people in prison for lots of people in prison that consider themselves artists that are in for violent crimes. But just because I sing about, and you don't want me to sing about something doesn't mean that's what happened.
Yeah, she has lots of problems with.
Oh yeah,
prejudice. I mean, look what she did with Charlie Bailey.
Wrote a song about Heartbreaker. It was a song about a guy who got shot in Central Park by the police unjustly. But it was Heartbreaker with your 44 shot him through the heart. Does that mean that Mick Jagger is violent? No, he was singing about injustice. So it's art. So I don't know. The theme of our Labor Day show is art is not reality.
Yeah, it's just
it's amazing to me that somebody that educated, I'm not saying smart, educated,
allegedly,
yeah, can be that obtuse. And I can't believe any judge would allow it. And I would think it'd be if you're going to use somebody's rap lyrics against them, again, unless they say, "I killed John Smith in the Parker's parking lot," and you found John Smith dead in the Parker's parking lot. Okay, well, let's go talk to that guy. Using somebody's violent rap lyrics, because a lot of that is just an outlet for angst. The same idea. This music that I listened to when I was young, like Limp Bizkit and Kid Rock, and that tied into the angst of the late '90s, early 2000s, is the same thing that a lot of young people, especially in economically depressed areas, their outlet is hip hop, and that's their outlet to kind of throw their middle finger at the system and say, things aren't great in my neighborhood, things aren't going wonderful, and I'm angry about it. And to use that as evidence in a court case is not great. All right, Jess, we have your closing thought.
Yeah, the worst detectives I have ever heard of. So I love true crime stuff, and I saw this story about this 2011 death of a woman in Philadelphia, and she was engaged to be married and was happy, was excited, but she dealt with a little bit of anxiety in her life. She was found with 20 stab wounds in 2011, and they ruled it a suicide. And this woman was stabbed like in the back of the neck, in the top of the head. I think more than a dozen of her stab wounds were behind her. So I don't know, but they ruled it a suicide. And just recently, they finally got the attorney general basically to order the district attorney's office to reopen the case and revisit it. And they're looking at it as if it's not a suicide. But that is like the absolute worst police work I've ever seen or heard of, to think that somebody who, first of all, I mean, You got to really hate yourself and hate your life to stab yourself 20 times. You've got to be an incredible person to do it from behind. But
contortionist.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a joke.
And I think it went on 11 years.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about this case, obviously. Obviously, this case is tragic, but that's a joke. I'll just tell them you fell on the knife 20 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
And so they also had some medical testing done that revealed that some of the stab wounds were dealt, or this, when she was already. Yeah, and I'm like, well, I mean, I don't know. The detective who handled that case should be publicly tarred and feathered.
Retired by now.
Well, 11 years, maybe, but
already made it to detective.
Yeah.
So that's not somebody new on the force.
Horrific, though.
Last week we got Biden's speech. I'm not going to go deep into it. The imagery was very strong. Independence Hall, flag in the background, Marines all around him. Guess who paid for that speech?
Who?
The taxpayers.
Oh, no.
It was a highly political speech, very anti-Trump, anti-MAGA. They say it was not. It was a policy speech, therefore it is covered under the president's duties. But I thought it was distasteful to flank yourself with the Marines, because ultimately the service is apolitical. Whoever the commander in chief is who they serve. Period. That's just the way it is. When you swear in, you swear to obey his orders or her orders one day, and that's it. Period. But it was the imagery from, if you take everything out of it and look at it from just a political animal standpoint, very, very strong. It was very, very much they wanted to show Biden as a strong guy. So I'm sure they made sure he got an extra long nap before he got out there. But red, white, and blue. Of course, the cameras were trained in on him and deep on him with the flag in the background. He's trying to, I guess, look strong so he has coattails to pull his midterms through. And look, from a psychological operations standpoint, it was strong. The speech was crap, but the imagery is very strong, and that's what most people take from it are the sound bites from whatever news source they decide to consume. So, happy Labor Day for those who have the day off. I want to give a big thanks to...
Happy Labor Day to the people who labor all year long.
Well, who is that?
Anyone else? Screw you.
So, big thanks to Eric Cumby, who takes our audio and turns it into something you listen to. A big thanks to Jessica Slodgy, who tolerates me on a weekly basis. Have a great week.
Catch me howling at the moon. Trying to catch me howling at the moon. Trying to catch me howling at the moon. Trying to catch me howling at the When water's up to my chin.